Welcome to my channel garden. Hi there. Today we're diving into part 6 of story. The villain was never sick. Let's continue. Liang Zhen forgot how to breathe. The busy bookstore street blurred around him. People walked past. Cars moved through the intersection. And somewhere across the road, one accountant spy was still losing a battle against a newspaper. But none of it registered properly. Because Shen Estate had just said, "I like hearing you happy," so casually, so honestly, as if it were the simplest truth in the world. Liang Zhen's ears burned instantly. You can't just say things like that out of nowhere. Why not? Because it caused cardiac events. Across the street, the accountant holding flowers appeared suspiciously emotional. Liang Zhen narrowed his eyes. Are they listening to this call? Possibly. Shen Estate. Then, somehow the situation became even worse. Muffled arguing suddenly erupted through the phone. Stop crying, Zhou. President Shen sounds so in love. Click. Silence. Either Shen Estate had muted them, or he'd murdered them. Honestly, it was difficult to tell. Liang Zhen covered part of his face with one hand weakly. Your company is insane. You married into it. The words should have sounded ridiculous. Instead, they felt strangely warm. Married into it. Into the strange, chaotic, terrifying family. And somehow, Liang Zhen was beginning to think that wasn't so bad. Meanwhile, Shen Estate continued as though nothing unusual had happened. What books did you buy? Liang Zhen glanced down at the paper bag beside him. 2 novels and 1 history book. You'll stay up late reading. Maybe. You're coming to the office tomorrow. I don't work for you. No, Shen Estate said. Then, after a brief pause, you work with me. Liang Zhen froze. With him, not for him. A tiny distinction. Yet somehow it landed far harder than it should have. Before he could think about it any further, one of the accountant spies suddenly jogged over. Mr. Liang. Liang Zhen blinked. The young man looked exhausted, sweaty and deeply distressed. Yes. We lost Zhou. What? He followed the wrong person. Liang Zhen slowly turned. Across the street, a middle-aged woman was aggressively chasing another accountant with an umbrella while yelling, "Why are you following me?" Absolute chaos. Liang Zhen burst into helpless laughter. The poor accountant sprinted for his life. Meanwhile, Shen Estate sighed through the phone deeply. I'm surrounded by incompetence. You sent accountants. They volunteered. Why? There was a brief pause. Then Shen Estate answered. They said you smile more outside lately. Liang Zhen's laughter slowly faded. Oh, across the street, Zhou was still being chased by an increasingly furious umbrella. Nobody seemed particularly concerned about their dignity, or the weather, or the fact that they were accountants. They had followed him anyway, just because they were worried. For some reason, Liang Zhen's chest felt strangely warm, and suddenly, the disastrous surveillance operation didn't seem quite as ridiculous anymore. Then the accountant beside him coughed awkwardly. President Shen also requested updates if you looked tired. Liang Zhen froze. Excuse me? The accountant looked confused. I thought you knew. Knew what? Apparently deciding honesty was the safest option. The man continued nervously. President Shen checks your meal schedule daily. Silence. What? And sleeping patterns. What? And whether you're wearing enough layers. The phone line went suspiciously quiet. Liang Zhen slowly lifted the phone back toward his ear. Shen Estate. Are you secretly 80 years old? A faint huff of amusement came through the phone. No. You monitor my meals. You forget them. You track my sleep. You read until 3 in the morning. That happened once. 3 times. Stalker. Then Shen Estate delivered the final blow. You look healthier now. Liang Zhen fell silent. The joke died instantly. Because Shen Estate didn't sound amused or smug or even defensive. He sounded relieved. As though he had spent a very long time worrying. Liang Zhen lowered his gaze to the books in his hands. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then very quietly, you notice everything about me. The accountant beside him immediately became fascinated by the clouds. A wise decision. And over the phone, Shen Wenzhou answered without hesitation. Yes. Liang Zhen's fingers tightened slightly around the paper bag. No denial or embarrassment. No attempt to hide it. Just simple, undeniable honesty. The ride home should have been uneventful. That was the problem. Everything felt too normal. Liang Zhen sat in the back seat with his books beside him, replying half-heartedly to Shen Wenzhou's increasingly unreasonable messages. Villain. Did you eat properly? Liang Zhen, yes. Villain. Actual food, not coffee. Liang Zhen. Maybe. Villain. Zhen. Liang Zhen, fine. 8. Villain, good. Liang Zhen stared at the screen helplessly. Ridiculous man. Outside, evening rain tapped against the windows. Streetlights blurred across the wet roads. The driver remained focused on the road ahead, while the two accountant bodyguards whispered nervously in the front seats. Apparently, Zhou from finance had survived the umbrella attack. Miraculously, the car felt warm and safe, comfortably ordinary. After all afternoon chaos, Liang Zhen allowed himself to relax. That was his second mistake. Then everything happened at once. A black van swerved out of a side street as brakes screamed. The Shen car jerked violently sideways. Liang Zhen slammed against the seat. What? Lock the doors. The bodyguards reacted instantly. Too late. The van doors burst open. Several men rushed forward. Fast and professional, not random criminals. One of them smashed the rear window without hesitation. Glass exploded everywhere. Liang Zhen's heartbeat stopped. Call President Shen now. One of the accountant bodyguards shouted from the front seat. Another attacker reached through the shattered window and grabbed Liang Zhen's wrist hard. Liang Zhen reacted immediately. What are you doing? The man's grip tightened. The bodyguards were already moving. Doors flew open, voices shouted over the rain, and broken glass scattered across the pavement as chaos erupted around them. Then, stop! A familiar voice cut through the noise. Liang Zhen stood frozen. That voice, no way. The man holding him hesitated. Everyone's attention shifted. Another car had screeched to a stop beside the road. The driver's door opened and a familiar figure stepped out. Liang Kai. Rain soaked the shoulders of his perfectly tailored suit. He didn't seem to notice. For a brief moment, everything went still. Then Liang Kai's gaze landed on Liang Zhen. The coldness vanished completely. Asian. He moved without hesitation. The man holding Liang Zhen's wrist instinctively tried to pull him back. Bad decision. Liang Kai's fist connected with his jaw hard. The kidnapper crashed against the side of the van. Unfortunately, that only made everything worse. Take him. Several men rushed forward at once. The accountant bodyguards finally abandoned all pretense of being ordinary office workers. One kicked the car door open so violently it slammed directly into a kidnapper's face. The other somehow produced an umbrella. Liang Zhen still had questions about that. Whack! The umbrella came down with surprising force. A man stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. Liang Zhen stared. Zhou from finance. The accountant bodyguard looked offended. I have a black belt. In finance. Focus on the kidnapping, sir. Another attacker lunged toward the rear door. Liang Kai intercepted him immediately. Rain splashed across the pavement as they collided. Liang Kai drove a sharp elbow into the man's side, then followed with a punch that sent the attacker folding instantly. For a brief moment, Liang Zhen forgot to be scared. His brother could actually fight. Since when? Then someone grabbed his ankle. Liang Zhen looked down. I wouldn't do that. The kidnapper looked up. What? Thud. Liang Zhen kicked him directly in the face. The man released him with a strangled sound. Years of avoiding danger had apparently not erased basic survival instincts. The accountant bodyguard pointed proudly. Good kick. Thank you. Not the time. The fight exploded completely. A kidnapper swung a metal rod. Liang Kai reacted instantly. He shoved Liang Zhen behind him. The rod clipped his shoulder instead. A sharp impact. Liang Kai didn't even flinch. His expression darkened. Something cold settled in his eyes. You touched him. The kidnapper suddenly looked nervous. Reasonably nervous. Liang Kai punched him hard enough to send him sprawling across the wet pavement. Silence fell briefly. Even the remaining kidnappers hesitated. Liang Zhen stared. His brother was standing in front of him, protecting him without hesitation. Something tightened unexpectedly inside his chest. A strange feeling, familiar and uncomfortable. Then, pain exploded through his head. Liang Zhen stumbled violently. A sharp gasp escaped him. Ah! The world tilted. Rain and shouting faded into the background as fragments flashed through his mind. A hand holding his. Someone laughing. Warm sunlight. A voice calling his name. Then the memory shifted. Blood. Wailing sirens. Darkness. Liang Zhen grabbed his head instinctively. The pain only intensified. Asian. Liang Kai's voice sounded distant. Alarmed. The bodyguards noticed immediately. Mr. Liang. For one critical second, everyone's attention shifted toward him. And that was all the kidnappers needed. Now, the remaining men moved at once. One slammed into Zhou from finance. Another intercepted Liang Kai. A third grabbed Liang Zhen before he could regain his balance. Let go. Liang Zhen struggled immediately. The world was still spinning. His vision refused to focus. Asian. Liang Kai broke free and lunged forward too late. Someone struck him from the side. The accountant bodyguards were surrounded almost instantly. The kidnappers stopped looking desperate. They finally had what they came for, Liang Zhen. Somewhere nearby, a familiar voice shouted into a phone. President Shen. There's been a situation. The words cut through the chaos. And suddenly, through the pounding pain in his head, Liang Zhen realized. Shen Wenzhou was about to hear the words. Liang Zhen has been taken. Oh no, oh no. This was going to be a complete disaster. Not for him but for everyone else. Rough hands shoved him forward. The van door slammed shut, and the world vanished behind dark glass. As the van sped forward, Liang Zhen slammed against the side door. The headache hadn't faded. If anything, it was getting worse. Fragments kept surfacing in his mind. A hand, a voice, warm sunlight, then blood. So much blood. Liang Zhen squeezed his eyes shut. What is happening? Nobody answered. The kidnappers looked very nervous. One kept checking his phone. Another kept looking through the rear window, as though they expected something to appear behind them. That should have been reassuring. Instead, Liang Zhen felt an overwhelming sense of impending disaster. The van disappeared into the rain. For half a second, nobody moved. Then chaos exploded. Get in the car. The bodyguards reacted immediately. Liang Kai was already moving. Rain hammered against the pavement as he yanked open the driver's door. Asian. The name escaped before he could stop it. His expression hardened. The engine roared to life. Behind him, Zhou from finance was already on the phone. The call connected instantly. President Shen. Report. The familiar calm voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it made everyone uneasy. Mr. Liang has been taken. Silence. Rain battered the windows. Nobody spoke. Then Shen Wenzhou asked. Location. Zhou from finance immediately gave it. Another pause. Then, do not lose them. The line went dead. For some reason, that was even more frightening. The chase lasted less than 8 minutes. The kidnappers drove aggressively. Sharp turns, dangerous speeds, constant lane changes. They were trying to shake pursuit. Unfortunately, they were being pursued by rich people. A kidnapper suddenly cursed. What now? Another looked behind them. His face went pale. Liang Zhen twisted around instinctively. First, he saw nothing. Then headlights, black cars. 1, 2, 5. More appearing behind them. The kidnappers immediately panicked. Why are there so many? Another swallowed. Did we kidnap a politician? Liang Zhen stared. Then realization hit. Oh no. Shen Wenzhou knew. Inside the lead vehicle, Shen Wenzhou sat in complete silence. Rain streaked across the windows. Assistant Su sat beside him. For once, even he wasn't talking. Nobody in the car dared speak. Because President Shen looked calm. Far too calm. The convoy ahead entered an empty industrial district. Shen Wenzhou finally looked up. Now. The driver accelerated. The black sedan surged forward. The pain struck again. Harder this time. Liang Zhen doubled over. A broken image flashed through his mind. Rain. A road. Someone running toward him. Asian. The voice sounded desperate. Familiar. Then everything vanished again. Liang Zhen gasped. The kidnappers were still shouting. Cars were still chasing them. But the pain drowned everything out. Outside, the black vehicles kept getting closer. 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 The driver suddenly swore. What the hell? Liang Zhen looked up. The kidnappers had gone pale. 1, 2, 5, 8. Black vehicles appeared from every direction. The road behind them disappeared beneath headlights. The road ahead vanished too. The black sedan surged forward, then cut sharply across the road. The kidnappers slammed on the brakes. Tires screamed. Everyone lurched forward. At the same moment, more vehicles blocked both sides. Every exit, every direction, every escape route. Silence followed. Rain fell steadily against the windows. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then a kidnapper whispered, "I think we made a mistake." Liang Zhen looked through the windshield. Car door opened. A familiar figure stepped out. His heartbeat stopped. Shen Wenzhou. Rain fell between them. Cold. Steady. Relentless. Then Shen Wenzhou started walking toward the van. And that night, the kidnappers understood why people feared him. For several seconds, nobody moved. Rain hammered against the van. Outside, black vehicles blocked every possible escape route. Inside, panic spread rapidly. One of the kidnappers swore. Another gripped his weapon tighter. A third kept staring at the approaching figure. What do we do now? Nobody answered. Because everyone already knew the answer. They were trapped. Then one man suddenly grabbed Liang Zhen's arm. Move! Liang Zhen stumbled. What? The van door was yanked open. Cold rain immediately rushed inside. Get out! Liang Zhen's headache throbbed violently. His vision blurred for a second. Unfortunately, the kidnappers chose that exact moment. A knife appeared. Cold metal pressed against his throat. The world went very still. Can we not do this right now? Liang Zhen managed. Nobody laughed. Because outside, every bodyguard had stopped moving. Liang Kai froze. Assistant Su froze. Even the rain somehow seemed quieter. The kidnapper dragged Liang Zhen forward, using him as a shield. Back off. His voice cracked. Fear. Real fear. Not confidence. Not control. Fear. Because Shen Wenzhou was still walking toward them. Step. 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 Rain soaked his coat. His expression never changed. The kidnapper's grip tightened. Stop right there. Shen Wenzhou stopped. Silence settled over the road. Liang Zhen looked up, and immediately wished he hadn't. Because he had never seen Shen Wenzhou look like this before. The warmth was gone. The softness too. Even the faint amusement Liang Zhen had grown used to had vanished. What remained was something cold enough to make the air feel heavier. The kidnapper swallowed. We'll kill him. Still no reaction. The silence became unbearable. Then Shen Wenzhou finally spoke. What do you want? The knife pressed harder against Liang Zhen's throat. Not enough to injure, but enough to threaten. Stay back. The kidnapper's voice cracked. Rain ran down his face. His hands were shaking. Across the road, nobody moved. Shen Wenzhou stopped several meters away. The bodyguards remained perfectly still. Liang Kai looked ready to murder someone. Asian. His brother's voice was strained. Don't move. I wasn't planning to, Liang Zhen replied honestly. The kidnapper looked offended. This is serious. It would be easier to tell if you weren't shaking. Even the hostage situation paused briefly. Then the kidnapper remembered he was committing a crime. Shut up. Okay. The knife trembled. Liang Zhen sincerely wished everyone would stop waving sharp objects near his neck. Unfortunately, nobody seemed interested in his opinion. The headache struck again hard. Liang Zhen sucked in a breath. Pain exploded through his skull. Rain. A road. Twisted metal. Someone screaming. Asian. The image vanished instantly. Liang Zhen staggered. The kidnapper almost lost his grip. What is wrong with him? Nobody answered. Because Shen Wenzhou had moved. One step. Just one. The kidnapper immediately panicked. I said stay back. Silence. Then Shen Wenzhou spoke. His voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. You're hurting him. The kidnapper froze. Liang Kai froze. Even the bodyguards looked uncomfortable. Because somehow that sounded worse than a threat. The man swallowed hard. We just want money. No. The answer came immediately. You don't. The kidnapper's expression changed. It was a tiny mistake. But everyone saw it. Shen Wenzhou, Liang Kai, and the bodyguards. This wasn't about money. Not even close. The rain suddenly felt heavier. The kidnapper looked away first. And that was when everything collapsed. A sharp whistle echoed through the road. One of the bodyguards moved fast. The kidnapper flinched instinctively. The knife shifted. Liang Kai lunged. At the same moment, Shen Wenzhou moved. The world exploded into motion. Someone screamed. Someone hit the ground. The knife disappeared. Strong arms grabbed Liang Zhen and pulled him backward. Away from the kidnappers. Away from the danger. For a moment, Liang Zhen couldn't breathe. His head hurt. His vision blurred. But there was a familiar scent. A familiar heartbeat. And a hand gripping his shoulder hard enough to hurt. As though letting go wasn't an option. Shen Wenzhou. No answer. Liang Zhen blinked slowly. Then realized Shen Wenzhou was checking him. His neck. His shoulders. His wrists. Every visible injury systematically. As though confirming he was still alive. Only after several long seconds did Shen Wenzhou finally stop. Are you hurt? The question came out rough. Nothing like his usual calm voice. Liang Zhen stared. Then understood. Shen Wenzhou had been afraid. Terrified, actually. I'm okay. For a second, neither of them moved. Then suddenly, Shen Wenzhou pulled him closer. One arm around his shoulders. The other at his back. For a brief moment he simply held him there firmly. As though reassuring himself that Liang Zhen was really here. Liang Zhen froze. The steady heartbeat beneath his ear was faster than usual. Much faster. Shen Wenzhou. Still no answer. The grip only tightened briefly. And somehow that said more than words could have. When Shen Wenzhou finally let go, his hand remained on Liang Zhen's shoulder, as though he wasn't quite ready to release him yet. Behind them, another kidnapper was dragged to the ground. One bodyguard ripped a phone from his pocket. A second bodyguard froze. President Shen. Nobody liked that tone. The bodyguard looked up slowly. His expression had gone strange. There's a message. Rain continued falling, but nobody spoke. The bodyguard swallowed, then read it aloud. Bring Liang Zhen alive. Complete silence. Liang Zhen felt a chill crawl down his spine. Because that wasn't random. That wasn't robbery. That wasn't money. Someone had wanted him specifically. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Rain continued falling. The captured kidnapper was forced onto his knees. His phone had already been confiscated. The message remained visible on the screen. Bring Liang Zhen alive. 5 simple words. Somehow they felt heavier than the knife had. Liang Zhen stared at the screen. His headache pulsed again. A dull ache behind his eyes. Not as severe as before. Still there. I don't understand. His voice sounded strange. Distant. The kidnapper refused to look at him. Liang Kai stepped forward. Who sent you? No answer. Who? Still no answer. The silence stretched. Then Shen Wenzhou spoke. Take him. The kidnapper visibly paled. The bodyguards moved. No, wait. Nobody listened. The man was dragged away. His protests vanished into the rain. Liang Zhen watched him go. Something about this felt very wrong. Someone wanted him. But why? He couldn't think of a single reason. Then another wave of pain hit. Liang Zhen's vision blurred. The road vanished. Rain vanished. For one terrifying second, a memory surfaced. A hospital corridor. Bright white lights. Someone sitting beside his bed. Holding his hand. Waiting for a very long time. The image disappeared instantly. Liang Zhen stumbled. Strong hands caught him before he could fall. Careful. Shen Wenzhou. Of course. Liang Zhen blinked. The world slowly returned. Rain. Cars. Bodyguards. Liang Kai. Reality. You look terrible, Liang Kai said immediately. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. That somehow makes it worse. Nobody laughed. That was unusual. Liang Zhen looked around. Everyone seemed tense. Far too tense. Then he realized why. Because for them this wasn't over. Not remotely over. The ride back to the estate was unusually quiet. Liang Zhen sat in the back seat. Shen Wenzhou sat beside him. Far too close. Not that Liang Zhen minded. Actually, that was concerning by itself. Every few minutes, Shen Wenzhou looked over at him. Not obviously. Just enough to make sure Liang Zhen was still there. Still breathing. Still safe. The headache lingered as a dull ache behind his eyes. Manageable. For now. Across from them, Assistant Sue was busy making phone calls. Many phone calls. None sounded pleasant. No. A brief silence followed. I don't care how many lawyers they have. Assistant Sue listened for a moment. Find them. Click. Another call immediately followed. Liang Zhen decided not to ask. The atmosphere felt dangerous. Very dangerous. Eventually, the estate gates appeared. The moment the car stopped, the front doors burst open. Guilan came flying down the steps. Actually flying. Physics appeared optional. Liang Zhen. Liang Zhen barely had time to step out before she grabbed him. Both shoulders. Then his face. Then his arms. Then his shoulders again. Checking. Inspecting. Confirming. You were kidnapped. Technically, yes. Technically? Mother. Please lower your volume. I will not. Liang Zhen winced. His ears may never recover. Behind her, Shen Rongda emerged at a considerably more dignified pace. Then immediately ruined the image by checking Liang Zhen for injuries too. Liang Zhen stared. You're doing it too. I am not. You literally checked my forehead. I was looking at the weather. Liang Zhen looked upward. There was a roof. Shen Rongda maintained eye contact. Neither of them spoke. Right. Before Liang Zhen could continue arguing, a much smaller figure crashed directly into him. Mama! Liang Zhen nearly fell over. Shen Yu. The child had attached himself immediately, like an emotional barnacle. Tiny arms wrapped tightly around his waist. Not letting go even slightly, Liang Zhen's expression softened. Hey! Shen Yu buried his face deeper. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then a tiny voice emerged. I was scared. Silence. The joking atmosphere vanished instantly. Liang Zhen froze. Something tightened painfully inside his chest. Slowly, he crouched down. Until they were eye level. Sorry. Shen Yu shook his head immediately. Then looked extremely serious. You can't get kidnapped anymore. I'll try. No. The child pointed at him. You have to promise. Liang Zhen almost laughed. Instead, he held out his hand. I promise. Only then did Shen Yu seem satisfied. The child immediately climbed into his lap. As though the crisis had been resolved. Guilan made a suspicious choking noise. Shen Rongda suddenly became very interested in the garden. Assistant Su looked away. Several servants were openly crying. Liang Zhen stared. What is wrong with everyone? Nobody answered. Because the answer was obvious. They had been terrified. Liang Zhen realized just how much these people cared about him. The next afternoon, the mansion felt strangely quiet. After the kidnapping incident, Shen Wenzhou had become even more attentive in ways that were honestly beginning to feel medically concerning. Examples. 3 additional security teams, location sharing permanently activated, hourly meal reminders, and Shen Wenzhou personally checking every car before Liang Zhen entered it. Liang Zhen finally snapped at lunch. I am not a rare museum artifact. Shen Wenzhou calmly placed more food into his bowl. You were almost stolen once already. I was almost kidnapped. Exactly. That was not the same thing. Meanwhile, Shen Yu nodded solemnly beside them. Very dangerous. So, after lunch, Liang Zhen escaped again. Technically with permission this time. I'm only walking in the garden, he informed them. Gu Ilan waved lazily from the sofa. Take a jacket. Shen Rongda. And your phone. Shen Yu. Don't disappear. Then all three looked at Shen Wenzhou, who simply stared at Liang Zhen for several long seconds before finally saying, Text me in 30 minutes. Liang Zhen almost laughed. Yes, Dad. Gu Ilan choked on tea. Shen Rongda lowered his newspaper slowly. Shen Yu gasped dramatically, and Shen Wenzhou froze. Liang Zhen realized too late what escaped his mouth. Oh no, abort. But then, very slowly, the corner of Shen Wenzhou's mouth lifted. Go before mother starts crying. Too late. Gu Ilan already looked emotionally unstable. The Shen Estate garden was enormous. Not rich person backyard enormous. More like accidentally own a small forest enormous. Stone paths curved through trees and flower gardens. A greenhouse stood near the eastern side. There were fountains, pavilions, and even a small artificial lake further back. Liang Zhen walked slowly beneath the afternoon sunlight, finally relaxing properly for the first time in days. Cool breeze and bird sounds surrounding him. No corporate murder confessions. Wonderful. At some point he wandered farther than usual. Past the greenhouse, the flower terraces, and toward the quieter western side of the estate where fewer servants walked around. There, hidden between old maple trees, stood a small glass pavilion. Warm sunlight filtered softly through leaves overhead. Inside sat a cushioned bench beside open windows. Peaceful. Perfect reading spot. Liang Zhen immediately approved. He settled down with his book and relaxed against the cushions. Just for a little while to rest. The breeze felt nice. Warm sunlight drifted softly across the pages. And without realizing it, Liang Zhen slowly fell asleep. 30 minutes later, inside the mansion, Shen Wenzhou looked up from his meeting. No text yet. A small crease formed between his brows. Assistant Su. Yes, President Shen? He forgot again. Assistant Su immediately understood. Should I remind Mr. Liang? A call was placed but no one answer. Silence. Assistant Su looked up slowly. Perhaps he's sleeping? Shen Wenzhou's expression didn't change. Location. Assistant Su checked immediately. Signal unstable. The temperature in the room dropped. Because after the kidnapping, those words were no longer harmless. Shen Wenzhou stood immediately. The meeting ended without announcement. Executives watched him leave in terrified silence through the screen. Meanwhile upstairs, Gu Ilan noticed the atmosphere first. What happened? Shen Yu walked into the hall holding ink sleepily. Where's Mama? Assistant Su. Good question. Thank you for watching. Liang Zhen is sleeping peacefully. Meanwhile, everyone else is about to have a very stressful afternoon. See you in part 7.